X Jackson.
Welcome back into the Sean&Sean podcast. This is episode number 7. Holy cow, time flies. I myself am Mr. Sean Usher, as you can see from the name tag there. Right beside me here with the wonderful addition of his cat is Mr. Sean Cummings. How about we say what's up to the world, Sean?
Hey, what's up, football family? We missed you. Welcome back. We're glad we can be in your ears for another week. I'm glad I can be your co-pilot. My cat Shadow says hi to everybody out there. She's such an attention seeker. She loves it. But it's the same two guys. It's the same two amateur opinions that you've come to know and love. So welcome back. If you're new here, come on in. Take your shoes off. Make yourself at home. But I gotta tell you, use a coaster, okay? I'm not gonna tell you again.
So, we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to start off on the big news that happened. You know, the Chicago Bears missed out again. And Mr. Carson Wentz gets traded to the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I'm just going to start this off. I don't know if the Bears really missed out. I don't know if the Bears were the team to get Carson Wentz back on track. You know, but at the same time, what are they going to do at quarterback? Now, for the Colts, this is a whole different story. This is the guy Carson Wentz is comfortable with. This is the team that has good offensive line, good weapons. I mean, this could actually a good defense. This could be a great situation to get Carson Wentz, back in. Maybe he's humbled from being traded, but we'll see what happens. What do you think of this trade?
Ooh, this trade. So let's break the trade down for folks so they fully understand what's going on here. Philadelphia trades Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts, and in return, they receive a third-round pick in this draft, which is pick number 84, and they also receive a conditional second-rounder next year that could become a first-rounder if Carson Wentz plays 75% of the offensive snaps and the Colts fail to make the playoffs. Or Carson Wentz plays 70% of the snaps and they do make the playoffs. So just looking at the snaps alone, if they're bringing in Carson Wentz, he's likely going to play a majority of the season unless he gets injured. So this may actually turn into a first-round pick for the Eagles, but it's not going to be a good first-round pick because you're thinking if the Colts make the playoffs, you are already drafting in the back half of the first round. Not beneficial. So with that said, my initial thoughts is I don't not like it for the Colts. They're adding in a quarterback who has performed well in the past with their head coach, with Frank Reich. So they've definitely got some potential there. And again, like I said in a previous pod, potential can be a very dangerous word. But they now have a quarterback in there who is competent, who is probably could be argued one of the better quarterbacks who is still available. And then you have the Eagles. I do not like this trade at all for the Eagles. And I'm not looking at just the trade itself. For me, I had to look beyond the actual trade. And what I mean is, there were a couple of things I was looking at. First of all, when Carson Wentz was drafted in 2016, the Eagles had to trade up from the number 8 spot to get up to number 2 to draft Wentz. They gave up 5 draft picks by doing that. They gave up some draft capital. And it's ironic because that 2017 first rounder they gave up, that 2017 pick was going to be the number 12 pick. You remember who was drafted number 12 in 2017? A fellow by the name of Deshaun Watson.
Ooh.
So they could have had Watson fall to their lap. and not giving away all that draft capital. But that's neither here nor there. But that's the first reason I don't like this trade. They gave up so much to get him. They believed in him so much they gave away all this capital just to trade him away again and get what I think is little in return. But that's just the first part. The second part is the extension. Yes, he played well in 2017. And that's what Indianapolis is hoping for when they draft or when they traded for Carson Wentz. They're hoping he returns to that 2017 version of himself. That is what I think was selling him to Philadelphia for that big extension. Because if you remember, before the 2018 season started, he signed that massive extension. And that extension was 4 years worth $128 million, and $66 million of that was fully guaranteed at signing. That's a lot of money to pay this man.
No. It wasn't the 2018 season. It was before the 2019 season he signed that.
19. Yes, there we go. My first mess up of the day, folks. We're going to chalk that one up. What?
Well, no. The only reason why I remember it, and I'm gonna get into my mind here a little bit because there's some more here, is just because Jared Goff signed his also. And I remember Eagles fans going all wacko because they're like, oh, look what we did. We signed Carson Wentz before Dallas could sign Dak. We're putting Dallas in this situation. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, just to say, but I mean, in truth, technically, Dak is the only quarterback from that draft class that's still with his original team. That's wacky to think about. But there's another part of this that's remiss here. You got this head coach who, you have this head coach here who, from my understanding, was coming to Philly because he thought he could fix Carson Wentz. That's who he thought his quarterback was going to be. Remember, he was coming from working under Frank Reich. I believe he was he in Philly? I don't know, but was he in Philly with them at the time? Because the understanding that I've heard is that he thought he was going to be working with Carson Wentz. So what is the direction here? Philly also just released Alshon Jeffries. What are they going to do now? Are they rolling with, Jalen Hurts? Who? Here's the thing. Jalen Hurts, from what I hear, great guy, fantastic leader, but he's a subpar NFL guy. Like, he's serviceable, but he's not making all the throws. He doesn't have that ability to get you over the hump. You're going to need to have that team around him to make it happen. So yeah, maybe they go with a Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, or from what some people are saying, your guy Devonta Smith. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Now, how does this trade affect everyone else, like Deshaun Watson, like Sam Darnold?
I think it leaves Watson as the remaining best option out there, and he was the best option out there for the longest time, so that part doesn't change anything. But I think it takes off the next best quality quarterback who was available. I don't think Sam Darnold's in the same range as Carson Wentz right now.
Now, with all that said, the Deshaun Watson thing, something I found out recently. So part of this, the issues that I was always thinking is because of the contract. But from what I hear, Watson's contract is actually pretty team friendly. So with as team friendly as it is, these teams are actually not having as much of a risk, and it's not taking on as much of an issue bringing him in. So, your Carolina Panthers over there shedding some of that weight, maybe trying to make that move. I mean, let's get this done sooner than later.
Yeah, well, absolutely. They absolutely should. I just want to circle back real quick to Carson Wentz when it comes to the extension. One more thing I wanted to add in, and this is the funniest piece of all. Now, keep in mind, they gave up draft capital to get him in the 2016 draft. They gave him this big extension because they were overly aggressive and they thought he was the franchise quarterback. They jumped the gun, obviously. Again, overly aggressive. It didn't pay off. End up shooting themselves in the foot. I hope he's successful in Indianapolis, just to spite Philadelphia. And I'm also hoping that he's successful in Indianapolis, because if you remember from one of our first pods, I actually predicted Indianapolis would return to the playoffs. So I need him to play well. So I'm still accurate on that pick. So I'm really rooting for him this year. But the piece I find the funniest of all is they paid Carson Wentz guaranteed money from the extension he signed, but he is never going to play a single down for the Philadelphia Eagles under that contract extension, because his rookie deal ends now. Any money he makes moving forward is from his extension. So Philadelphia went through this whole process. They gave him all this money, signed him to the extension. He's not going to play a single down for the Eagles under this extension. And I find that to be the most humorous thing of all. All of this effort, all of this trouble, for what? All you had to do was wait another year, because he became a little subpar in 18, maybe a little bit injured, or not 18, but 19. And then we saw how 20 went. What if they had just waited a year?
But even it doesn't make sense for this. I mean, let's be honest here. Everybody wants to rag on Carson Wentz, say he regressed. This is. He had a rough 2020. All right, here's the thing. Everybody's pointing to the Jalen Hurts and he didn't react. Well, maybe he didn't. But again, look at everything that was going on in 2020. A lot of people didn't have their minds right. There's a lot of injuries that happened, but the way he ended 2019 wasn't bad. He had nobody for weapons, and they made a run to make the playoffs. But the funniest part about this whole thing for me, and yeah, being a Dallas fan, I like to stick it to the Eagles a little bit, is the fact that Philly has the third highest cap hit from a quarterback this year, and Carson Wentz is not playing a single down for them. That's nonsense. And the sole fact that some people believe they don't even believe in Jalen Hurts, and they could be drafting another quarterback this year. This is craziness. They've got too many other holes, and they're over the cap, so they've got shit. I do not envy Philly fans now this year.
They got a tough spot, and I gotta say, if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman's on the hot seat. Like this year, we gotta see some movement. We gotta see some playoffs. If not, you gotta go. I don't know who did a worse job, Howie Roseman or Chip Kelly. We can debate that in a future pod. But that's a question I have. Who did a worse job?
Howie got the Super Bowl, so Chip didn't.
Super Bowl is all that matters. Guess what? Carson Wentz has a Super Bowl ring. Do you know how many playoff games he's played?
Do you know
how many playoff games he's played? He hasn't even finished a playoff game, and he has a Super Bowl ring. How about that?
Well, a lot of guys do. All right, so moving on. We're going to continue our draft series here. So we're going to go with offensive tackles this week. I'm going first this time for this segment. And we're going to go start at number 5 like we normally do. And my number 5 guy, coming out of USC, is Elijah Vera Tucker. This guy, very good player, came on this year. He's one of the guys who benefited from them going back to school. He's still a little bit raw, but he's very athletic. He's got all the tools to make it happen. I also think he can probably play almost every spot on the line. Now, I'm pretty sure you have him on your list, but probably not where I do. So we're going to get your reaction on that a little bit later. How about we get to your number 5 guy?
Number 5, I have Alex Leatherwood from Alabama. I got to show some love to my Alabama folks. I've been saying some pretty nice things about Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, and now we got to get to the guy who's blocking for the quarterback, giving Mac Jones time to throw to Devontae Smith. We got to give the guy some credit who's blocking for Najee Harris. Alex Leatherwood, the guy has a great skill set. You figure the past couple of years, he's been a left tackle for the best team in the country, or arguably the best team in the country. He has 2 years of good tape playing some SEC defense. And then he also has a little versatility to him because he spent some time at right guard early in his career. So he can play in multiple positions, but I think he can be pretty solid as a left tackle. He's got some good years of tape available. He didn't have a great showing during the Senior Bowl practice week, but I don't think that's going to hurt his draft stock as much. I think there's a lot of positives to him. Very athletic. He has a lot of upside. So I think he will do well.
All right, so here's the thing. I don't have Alex Leatherwood on my top 5. Main reasoning is I think he's a right tackle. Now, nothing wrong with being a right tackle. It's just left tackles are worth more, and he'll have a solid career. I just there's some issues with his game. Maybe he can clean them up. He seems like a tick slow at times. I think Alabama's offense makes up for some of his athletic deficiencies, but still a very good player. Still possibly could go in the first round. He's a second round, second round's his floor. Then he'll be a dang good right tackle for a team in the future. Yeah, I said it.
You did. You're just hating on Alabama. You really are.
Moving on. I did not hate on the running back, okay? Moving on to my number 4 guy. My number 4 guy is Samuel Cosmi from Texas. Now, this guy has all the he has all the potential in the world. This guy could actually turn out to be the second stud of this draft. There's already a true stud up there, but this guy could turn out to be the second best tackle in this draft when it's all said and done with. He just needs development. He's got every single tool. He's athletic as can be. He's got great size. This guy may be a little bit of a project, but in the long run, he could be one of the best tackles from this class.
Yeah, Cosmi is not on my list, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying. He's got potential, and again, that's a dangerous word, potential, but he's got it. I've heard that he's a little bit raw. He needs a little bit more time to develop. But you put him with the right coaching staff, that doesn't become an issue. I could see him sneaking in at the end of the first round, or maybe going very early in the second round. He's got good size, 6'7", 309. He's got those long arms. Yeah, there's a lot of positives there.
Now, who's your number 4 guy?
All right, my number 4 guy, and you're going to rag on this one too, because I'm throwing another right tackle in there. Jalen Mayfield from Michigan. So you can hate on these right tackles all you want, but you need them on your team. So don't you forget about that. But Jalen Mayfield, one of those people who put up really good tape against Defensive Rookie of the Year Chase Young in 2019. And I have a feeling we're going to hear those same words said a little bit later on in this segment. I think we're going to come back to some of those same words, but he played well against Chase Young back in 2019. He played well in 2020. We didn't really have a chance to see him take that step forward because he was missing some times with injury, and the Big Ten had a shortened season altogether, so we could see him a lot. But he has quickness, he has athleticism, and I think that's going to be able to help him when it comes to those quicker edge rushers. He's going to have a little bit of quickness to keep up with them. So I have Jalen Mayfield as my number 4 tackle.
All right, so my only thing here is this. You didn't have my guy Samuel Cosmi on your list, and Jalen Mayfield has a lot of the same issues that Cosmi has right there. Potential. The guy's as athletic as can be, great size again, but he's raw, and he has potential, as the word that you said, that dangerous word.
He's gonna make that word potential is gonna make a fool of at least one of us. Okay, let's remember
that. Now, moving on to my number 3 guy. My number 3 guy is Christian Darasaw out of Virginia Tech. This guy, again, solid player. He's a tick lower than my number 2 and number 1 guy. This guy's going to be a top 15 pick. He has got some really good tape. He will sit back and he will stone somebody at the line of scrimmage. And what I mean by that, there are guys who are going to come up, they think they're going to put a move on him, and he's just going to be a brick wall. He's going to be like, there's a moving brick wall at that, so there's no getting around, no budging this. They're going to come up with something. He's extremely strong. This guy's an NFL ready prospect. We're going to save that one for you. We're going to get to your number 3 guy because I'm pretty sure Darasaw is going to be on your list a little bit later. So who's your number 3 guy?
All right, my number 3 guy is Elijah Vera Tucker from USC. All right, I'm loving these graphics here. Yes. So Elijah, you already said some good things about him. He's got quickness. He can move with those fast pass rushers. I think he's going to be better in pass blocking than he will be run blocking, but that's just the way the NFL world is going, so that worked very well for him. He's going to be better in the pass blocking. Past 2 years at USC, he's shown some good production from multiple positions. He's played mostly tackle, but he also spent some time at guard, so he does have that versatility to him. And I can see him having success as a starting left tackle in the league.
Now, here's my only issue coming about for him, and it's not an issue because I'm gonna tap the hat. I'm wondering if this guy out there named Zach Martin, if Elijah Vera Tucker is better suited for guard. I think he will be a good tackle, but maybe a great guard. That's the only thing that I wonder about for him. And I think, from my understanding, you might make this argument for a different guy on my list. So, we'll see how that goes going forward. But,
yep,
continuing my list, we have to go to my number 2 guy. And sorry, I'm lagging a little behind. That is my fault. So my number 2 guy is Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. And Sean said that we were going to bring the whole thing back about being good against Chase Young. And Rashawn Slater probably gave Chase Young his toughest outing of that particular year. It was his most difficult outing of that year. Rashawn Slater, yes, I get the argument here. He's got shorter arms. Whoop-de-whoop-de-doo. The dude is a technician. And the dude will be a solid starter. No, rephrase that. A great starter for a team at tackle or guard going forward. I think he's more of a tackle, a left tackle, but if somebody wants to make him a guard and make him a perennial Pro Bowler for years to come, why not?
Yep, I'm getting ready to pop your stovetop here. You ready? I don't have Rashawn Slater on my list at all. And it's not just because I want to get under your skin. It's not that I'm not giving respect. But Rashawn Slater's going to be good. But I'm not talking about him this week because I don't think he's going to be a tackle at the next level. I think he's going to be on the interior, whether that's guard or center, because really, he has the experience at all 3 positions. So when we talk about the interior offensive line next week, he's on my list. You bet he's on my list. He might even be at the top, but I'll hold you in suspense until next week. I'm showing some love next week, but not with the tackles. Sorry, Rashawn, not with the tackles.
Travesty. Travesty.
Travesty. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what the team that drafts him decides. We'll take a look at that. But my number 2 guy is going to be Christian Darasaw from Virginia Tech. Someone that you have already spent a few moments talking about, bragging about. Good pass blocking, some pretty good run blocking in there as well. He's gotten some mixed reviews from scouts. Some scouts absolutely love him, and they think he's going to end up being a solid starting left tackle going in the first round. Others think he's a second-round talent who may be better when he kicks into guard spots. They think he lacks the physicality with the edge rushers. He lacks that mean streak, but I think he could be the tackle. I think he's going to be the second tackle drafted. Tackle's the emphasis.
All right, so we're to the number 1 guy. I think we both agree on this one. So I got Penei Sewell from Oregon as my number 1 guy. I mean, here's the thing, and you get people arguing. So there's people who are sitting there saying right now he would be in last year's tackle draft. He'd be the number 3, number 4 guy drafted. But then they say after development, this dude could be the best tackle that we've seen in the last 10 years. Now, again, a lot of people in Dallas talking about, yada, yada, should we do this, should we do that? Because a lot of this guy's getting compared to a certain individual who has played for Dallas for the longest time, has played really well for Dallas. And a lot of people like to knock him because he gets injured. But the whole thing is, if Penei Sewell is 70% of what Tyron Smith has been, even at his 70%, then you run to the bank with that pick. That's generational player. And this guy, he has all those tools to be that. Now, depending on the team he goes to, if he develops into that, we'll see. But this guy's the best tackle in this draft. I actually think, based on it, he would have been maybe the second best tackle in last draft, personally. So that's how I feel about it. What do you think?
Yeah, even opting out, full agreement. Let's just say that right now. Sewell, number 1 tackle on the board. It wasn't even a question. Even after opting out of the entire 2020 season, he was still viewed as the best offensive tackle prospect. And it wasn't even questioned. There was no doubt about it. In my mind, he's one of the top 3 players available in this draft. He's got the size, length, quickness. He's got the athleticism. We don't have that 2020 tape on him, but guess what? He was so dominant during the 2019 season, which was his sophomore year, that he ended up winning the Outland Trophy for best lineman in the nation. He was voted as unanimous first-team All-American, and fun fact, he even got himself some Heisman votes in the 2019 season. If that's not impressive, I don't know what is. And his freshman year was pretty good as well back in 2018, so scouts still have 2 years of good tape on him. He could have sat out the 2021 season, and he'd still be the number 1 prospect next year for the tackles. Guy's that good.
All right, moving on to our next segment. We got our free agency segment. This one we're doing edge and defensive tackles. All right, Sean, I'm going to let you go first this time. And our first defensive tackle, or the first edge defensive lineman up. I'm going to call him defensive lineman because this dude can play all over. We know who he is. He was released last week. Where you got J.J. Watt going?
J.J. Watt. All right. Well, hold on one moment. One of my other cats is jumping around real quick, but they like stealing the spotlight, literally. But yes, J.J. Watt's just released last week. He's not going to have a team go after him to be the number one pass rusher. I think those days are behind him. Not saying he's not going to be good, but I think those days of relying on him to be an elite pass rusher, getting to the quarterback, those days are beyond him. But he's going to be a really solid number two pass rusher for a team. He's going to make that difference. Every team should be going after him, whether they have a small chance of getting him, a large chance. I think every team needs to be chasing. He's going to limit it down to those playoff caliber teams. He wants a championship ring. All these years he's played, he's gotten Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. He's led the league in sacks. He has so many personal accomplishments, but how many playoff victories does he have? How far has he gotten into playoffs before? One thing that's continued to elude him, and the whole Houston franchise, is playoff success leading to a Super Bowl. So he's going to go to a contender, or a team that wants to contend, but that's a tough spot, is who has the cap space to sign him? Because I'd like Green Bay to get him. They don't have the cap space.
No.
The Bears, they're closer to being at the cap number, but they have a whole quarterback problem to solve. So for me, I've heard some rumors recently, and at first I thought, no, it's crazy. He can't go there. He won't go there. No, not going to happen. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, actually, that might make a little sense. Cleveland Browns, because opposite of J.J. Watt would be Myles Garrett. Quarterbacks in the NFC or the AFC North that have to be really afraid next year. Really afraid. And at first, I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but yeah. Cleveland made the playoffs. I don't. Right? Who knows about Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh's in a bad spot. So maybe Cleveland gets back in the playoffs next year.
No, I mean, that's an interesting spot. That's a spot I did consider. But this is one time I'm just going to bring my ass and be a homer. And I could see J.J. Watt moving to defensive tackle, being a bit of a mentor to some young players, and going to a team that has a pretty good quarterback. And yes, I'm saying the Dallas Cowboys. That and again, he doesn't have to be, like you said, that main pass rusher there. You've got DeMarcus Lawrence. You've got Randy Gregory. Put him in the middle there, let him solidify in there, and push that pocket because he's still got that strength. And then teach those guys behind him. I think it'd be a really good spot, especially once Dallas signs Dak and they free up some cap space, and then focus on the secondary for the draft.
I like how you used the versatility of J.J. Watt, and you said switch him to defensive tackle. I like that, because wasn't it a couple of years ago that he made the All-Pro team at 2 positions, the edge rusher, and then he also made it as defensive tackle because how the voting played out? I like that.
All right, moving on. We got Ravens outside linebacker, edge rusher, Matt Judon. What team do you have him going to if he leaves the Ravens?
If he leaves the Ravens, and I think this one is actually more likely that he is going to leave the Ravens because production fell off this year. And Baltimore's probably not very happy because, actually, they might be happy. They slapped the franchise tag on him, and, he had a down year. Maybe that was a good sign for him. Maybe like, hey, we dodged a bullet by avoiding a long-term contract with him right now. But I think he's going to end up getting his long-term deal. I think a team that could pay him and have a need at edge and pass rushing would be the New York Jets.
That's not a bad pick for that, New York Jets. What are your thoughts on how he could impact the Jets?
You're thinking the team's got to, whether they go after Deshaun Watson or not, you got to build that defense. You need somebody who's going to get to the quarterback on the opposite side. You need some pass rush help, and guess what? Pass rush comes at a premium. So he's coming off a season where he led Baltimore with 6 sacks. That's a pretty low number when you're considering that you led a team in sacks. But you pay a premium for those pass rushers. Now, I'm not really sure it's going to work out for him. I'm not sure it's going to work out for the Jets, but I think they're going to pay him.
All right, so the team I got that Judon going to, it's a team that's in desperate need of just an overhaul of its defense in general. But considering the scheme that was going on, I'm going to have him go to the Detroit Lions. You know, the Detroit Lions do have some room to make some moves. They might be losing a pass rusher of their own coming up, or they could keep this pass rusher and bring on another one and think we're going to go the Green Bay Packers style of doing things. So I'm thinking the Detroit, you know, the Matt Judon might just, you know, go up a couple states there and you know, get a decent contract there, considering they need to overhaul a little bit. Now, onward to our next guy, Mr. Shaquille Barrett. Tampa Bay just won a Super Bowl. Most likely will stay, but where do you have him going if he doesn't stay?
If he's leaving, and it's a possibility because Tampa Bay has several contracts that are set to expire, and they have another player who could be franchise tag eligible if they can't agree to a long-term deal. So seeing Shaq Barrett leave town could be realistic for this Tampa Bay fan base. So guys, prepare yourselves. If I were Tampa Bay, I actually would use the franchise tag on him. That's just my opinion. Moving on to where should he go? He's getting paid. He's played a couple of one-year deals. He's in for that long-term contract, and he is going to get it this offseason. He's shown that he is an elite pass rusher. He had, 19 and a half sacks back in 2019. He had a down year with 8 sacks this past season. But guess what? He showed up and he showed out in the playoffs. In the playoffs, he had 3 sacks alone against Green Bay in the championship game. He had another sack in the Super Bowl, constantly putting pressure on Patrick Mahomes and any other quarterback that he faced this year. So he's an elite pass rusher, and he is about to get paid like one, but he's not leaving the state of Florida. He's going to Jacksonville. That's my guess for him. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Not a bad choice there. Well, because you know where I got Jacksonville doing next year. So, I mean, Shaquille Barrett would go a long way to help that out.
Yep.
You know, pair him with Josh Allen. Let's let that roll.
Yeah, immediate upgrade to that defense. Immediate.
Now, I have Shaquille Barrett going. I do have him leaving the state of Florida, going someplace else that's warm. You know, someplace that's got some all sorts of crazy fun nonsense for him to get into. Hopefully he doesn't. But and I got him going to play for that crazy lunatic out there. Oh yes. We got him going to play for Gruden in Las Vegas.
Wow.
The Las Vegas Raiders, who desperately need pass rush help. And so he can go and try to feast on Patrick Mahomes a little bit more. Yes, threw you through a loop there.
Twice per year. Yes.
Now, on the next one, this one's a little interesting. Mr. Javion Clowney. Where do we have Mr. Clowney going?
Oh, man. Mr. Clowney. Last year, he only played 8 games due to injuries, and he wasn't really that impressive last year. He had no sacks in the season, had a total of 19 tackles. He's not as dominant as he once was. I mean, his best pro season was back in 2017, which actually happens to be the only season of his career that he played a full 16 games in. But then, when was the last time that he was dominant? For me, the last time he was dominant was 2012 at the University of South Carolina. That's the last time that he was dominant for me. 13 sacks, 23.5 tackles for a loss. He was a monster in college. I don't think he's lived up to that #1 draft pick status. And that's been really tough for him. Coming off an injury-filled season, he's going to have to settle for another 1-year deal. And I want to see him go to Indianapolis because they have a need at edge rusher. They're probably going to give him some money for a 1-year prove-it deal. Plus, I want to see him complete the tour of the AFC South teams because after he plays for the Colts, he only has one team left to go to complete the tour.
That it would be Jacksonville there, huh?
Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll talk about him this time next year going to Jacksonville.
True. The Colts are an interesting possibility for him. I actually think he's going to be humbled by his situation that has gone on this year. And I think he's going to go to a place that's going to revitalize him. Yes, again, a 1-year deal, probably a discounted 1-year deal. And this particular defensive coordinator is going to get more out of him than anyone ever has because this is what this guy does. He's a mastermind. He's fantastic. Oh yeah. I got Javion Clowney going to the New England Patriots. Holy cow, let's look out and see what happens.
Yeah, if there's anybody that can turn a career around, Bill Belichick. Yes.
Indeed. All right, so we're moving on. We got a couple more of these. Yannick Ngakoue is up next. Where do you have Mr. Ngakoue going?
Yannick. Now, if I'm Baltimore, I know I'm getting sidetracked. This whole segment is if they leave town, but if I'm Baltimore, I'm slapping the franchise tag on Yannick here. Not their other guy who they're letting walk.
True. I got you.
Yeah.
But
Yannick.
if he's to leave town.
Yeah, if he's leaving town, you're thinking, this guy played for 2 different teams last year, right? He actually started the season in Jacksonville, but he didn't actually play any games. Got traded to Minnesota, played a couple games there, gets traded to Baltimore, finishes out his season in Baltimore. So impressive that he was performing so well. I was a little torn on destinations. Part of me was thinking maybe Buffalo, because maybe he could team with Jerry Hughes. Maybe create a better pass rush. But then I thought, who has he played with before? And I'm thinking, defensive assistant Dom Capers is now with the Detroit Lions. Dom Capers was also the defensive assistant in Jacksonville back in 19. Todd Walsh is the defensive line coach now in Detroit, and he also spent time as the defensive line coach, I think defensive coordinator as well in Jacksonville a couple of years ago. So if I'm those guys and I see Yannick hit free agency, yes, please.
Nice.
He's not going to give you a lot in the run game, but he's going after the quarterback.
I went a little bit of a different direction here. I went to a team that's losing a player that was underwhelming for them, and they're going to go. They need pass rush in a desperate way. It's one of their Achilles heels, and they're going to have to contend with another team that's making some moves out here. Now I got the Tennessee Titans getting Yannick Ngakoue. I think it makes sense for them to make a run at him, and where I already had Shaquille Barrett go to Las Vegas, it only makes sense for me to give, because that was my other team was Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas needs pass rush help, but so does Tennessee. And I like the fit of Yannick in Tennessee better than I do in Las Vegas. I like Shaquille better in Las Vegas. So presto changeo. I could be wrong about things. We'll see how it goes. So on to our next one. Got a guy who had a career year last year, Mr. Romeo Akwara.
All right, now Romeo, first couple of years of his career, he didn't play too well, but there was something. There was a flip that just got switched, and at the second half of last year, he just turned it up, and he put together a career year pretty much in the second half of a season alone. He just caught fire. Now, he's going to be a tricky one because teams are going to look at him and they're going to think, okay, he didn't play well for the first couple of years. He finished strong in 2020. Which Romeo are we going to get? Which one's going to show up for us on Sundays? I wouldn't be surprised if he had to settle for a short-term deal just due to the inconsistency that he's shown over the past couple of years. But a destination where I could see him going could be the Carolina Panthers.
And that would be an interesting spot for him. Carolina, I mean, yeah, and Carolina does need some pass rush help. I mean, they've got Brian Burns, but he can't do everything all by himself. Gonna need a running mate down there.
Romeo's not going to be a number one pass rusher. He's going to be that number two guy.
Now, see, I'm not high on Romeo Akwara, I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to have him go to a team that I think is known for making poor pass rush decisions. So I'm actually going to send him to one of the Panthers' rivals, the Atlanta Falcons. Because the Atlanta Falcons have been searching for a pass rusher since, what was his name? Is it John
Abraham?
John Abraham, there it is. They have not had a legit pass rusher since John Abraham. They had 1 year of Vic Beasley, which they thought, oh, here it is. And then Vic Beasley was lackluster to say at best after that season. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here. So, moving on. Now, this is a player that me and you both agree should be playing a different position, but the NFL has listed as a defensive end. How about Mr. Leonard Williams?
Leonard Williams. Yeah, he's the former number 6 pick in the 2015 draft, and he finally lived up to that billing. And what a great time to do it when his contract expires, right? If there's any time you want to have a career year, it's right when your contract ends. So he probably didn't plan it this way, but nice job, Leonard. He's normally known for his run blocking, but when you see a guy throw up 11.5 sacks, have another 30 quarterback hits, he's getting paid. As I was talking about before, pass rushers come at a premium. You're going to pay for the potential. Look how many contracts Javion Clowney's gotten because of it. There's going to be a contract that Romeo gets because of it. Leonard Williams, he's going to get a contract. And I think he's going to spend some time on the interior, though. I think he's going to be in the defensive tackle position. And I have him going to Jacksonville as a defensive tackle, really improving that defense this offseason. Shaq Barrett, Leonard Williams, boom. AFC South quarterbacks, you better watch out.
Wow, this is going to be very interesting because I myself also have Leonard Williams going to Jacksonville, playing on the interior. It's just one of those moves that makes a lot of sense. It's one of those moves where it's just like Jacksonville has been filtering guys out. You got a new coach coming in. Get that guy who's going to make a pop. There's another team that needs him, but they're not going to get him. They're called the New York Jets.
They already had him.
So, just to recap, our segment here, you have J.J. Watt going to the Cleveland Browns, Matt Judon going to the New York Jets, Shaquille Barrett going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Javion Clowney going to the Indianapolis Colts, Yannick Ngakoue going to the Detroit Lions, and then you have Romeo Akwara going to the Carolina Panthers, and then Leonard Williams going to the Jacksonville Jaguars, where I myself have JJ going to the Dallas Cowboys, Matt Judon going to the Detroit Lions, Shaquille Barrett going to the Las Vegas Raiders, the Javion Clowney going to the New England Patriots, Yannick Ngakoue going to the Tennessee Titans, then Romeo Akwara going to the Atlanta Falcons, and Leonard Williams going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got a little shake up there, but a lot of teams are near the same for who we had there. Now, moving on to our next segment, we've got our defensive tackle segment. We're only doing 4 players for this particular segment.
I'd like to argue where he did a player, Leonard Williams.
All right, you can argue that. Also, J.J. Watt. But we're going to start with a guy who's been released already, Mr. Kawan Short.
Oh, Kawan Short. I think this offseason is going to be a little bit challenging for him just because he's coming off 2 injury-shortened years, getting released by Carolina recently. He's going to be one of those players who has to settle for that 1-year prove-it deal to show that he can stay healthy. I think he's going to be really good in the run game if he stays healthy. And a team I can see Kawan Short going to. And it's tempting to say the pseudo-Carolina Panthers and Washington, but I'm going to go against that, and I'm going to say the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, interesting now. Dallas does like their bargain guys, and I think Kawan would be a bargain type guy this year.
He would.
Now, a team that I think is rebuilding itself and how it's doing things. I've already had them make moves with the defensive ends. I'm also going to make them have moves here. I'm going to actually have them go to the Detroit Lions, because the Detroit Lions can't get top-notch guys everywhere. They're going to have to cut corners somewhere. Where I haven't been a bargain guy, I think the Detroit Lions make a lot of sense. Onward.
Yeah, that'd be a nice pickup for Dan Campbell and company. See that?
Onward, Mr. Ndamukong Suh, I think he stays in Tampa. But if he's to leave Tampa, what's a spot for him to go and play?
If he leaves Tampa, he's going to have that short-term contract, and for a team that wants to win, we're thinking a team that's on a playoff cusp that needs a little bit of help on the defensive line to put him over. He got his championship. I can see him going to the Las Vegas Raiders, playing with John Gruden. I mean, he'd be there to mentor, to really add value to that young defensive line talent that they already have. And when you think about the Raiders, don't you think that Ndamukong Suh's style just fits in with the Raiders?
I mean, well, he's got that attitude. He does have that attitude, that Gruden-style attitude. Now, the team I have him going to, and he'd have to take a little pay cut to get there, but like you said, he wants a championship, or he wants to continue championships, and if he has to leave Tampa, he's going to go to a team where he kind of helped wreck them this year. So I actually have him going to the Kansas City Chiefs.
He's just a mercenary for hire at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what he's been for the last couple of years. Let's be honest here.
True.
Okay, so all right, yeah. So moving on from Sue, where do you have Jonathan Hankins going?
Jonathan Hankins, a player whose career has slowly been in a decline since his rookie season. Now, he may not be able to offer you that pass rush support that you want, but he's a defensive tackle. What you want those guys to do is really keep the middle, do a lot of run blocking. That's something he's really solid with. So he played college ball at Ohio State, and I see him returning, not to Ohio State, but returning to the state itself, and going to the Cleveland Browns. He's going to add some extra depth to that Cleveland roster. Him and J.J. Watt.
That's an interesting choice there. Oddly enough, I've done something very similar to you, where I have him going to the Dallas Cowboys. Really interesting concept there. Now, Jonathan Hankins, he was never going to give you pass rush. He was always going to be that one tech, but he's damn good spot at that one tech. He's going to stop the run for you. He's very good. And he does give a little bit of pass rush for you. So it's not like it's not outside the realm there. No, it's just I think he's a one tech. You know. Now, lastly, Daquan Jones. Where you got Daquan Jones going?
Daquan. I'm still thinking about this one. Do you want to go first for Daquan?
With Daquan Jones does give you some pass rush ability. I actually think he's going to get a pretty darn decent contract this year. And one team that I could really see him going to and possibly thriving on, especially if certain things do get shaken up with them, is the Atlanta Falcons. Because the Atlanta Falcons may have some cap casualties, and they got a new coach, and they could be doing some turnover there. And I think Atlanta could be a very good spot for him to go into and possibly get a really nice contract out of it.
Yeah. In these scenarios, we're thinking that the New York Giants are going to lose Leonard Williams in this scenario. So I could see Daquan Jones going to the Giants to help with that interior defense.
So going with the Giants? You don't seem very confident with that one. All right.
No,
so, just to read.
It's either Giants or Pittsburgh who I was going with. So we'll go with Giants.
So we're just going to recap our defensive tackles here. You've got Kawan Short going to the Dallas Cowboys, and Ndamukong Suh going to the Las Vegas Raiders. We got Jonathan Hankins going to the Cleveland Browns, and Daquan Jones going to the New York Giants. Where I myself have Kawan Short going to the Detroit Lions, Ndamukong Suh going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Ooh. Jonathan Hankins going to the Dallas Cowboys, and Daquan Jones going to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, all this being said, a lot of these players probably won't even be leaving their teams, but a lot might. This is a different type of year. So we just gotta wait and see what happens. Like we said, we're not experts. We're just guesstimating here on certain concepts here. I mean, there are cap aspects that we haven't even thought to dive into with a lot of this. Now, what's going to be really interesting is what teams do with the tags this year, because tags are guaranteed. So it's just like, what teams are willing to fork over that type of money in a year like this, which is a down year? Yes, they're hoping that they can get more fans in stands and they can gain some of that money back that was lost and maybe have the cap raise next year. But that does nothing for a lot of players this year. And I could foresee some really good players out there just floating in the wind, or taking small deals to small 1-year deals to try to showcase himself for next year.
Yeah, I think this could be an off-season where we see more franchise tags used, and I definitely think that this is going to be an off-season where we see franchise used for the second time on certain players, because it is a very unique off-season. The cap is just in a very tricky spot. So while they're waiting for that cap to bump back up over $200 million like they're expecting, I think we'll see some franchise tags used. How is it beneficial for the players? Not really. They're not getting that long-term security, but it's much more beneficial for the teams in this case. But it can be that bridge here while they continue to negotiate.
I also see some of those incentive-laced type deals that are based on performance, because I could see some teams going with some of these guys they're not sure about, like an Akwara, and you could see them get maybe what looks to be a lower deal but could be a larger deal. You know, it's like, okay, they signed an $8 million deal, but that $8 million deal could turn out to be $15 million.
Right, incentives when they reach certain milestones, absolutely. That would be pretty wise for teams to use, especially like you're mentioning, a player like Romeo. There's also, a player in New Orleans, what's his name? Trey Hendrickson, who had a pretty solid 2020 year, but, hasn't really done as well in the previous years. And he's one of those, hey, this is going to be boom or bust. Which Trey are you getting? You getting the one who didn't perform well at 18-19? You getting the guy who showed out in 20? Maybe you do that short-term deal. Maybe you say, hey, low base salary, but you reach, snaps, you reach sacks, you reach quarterback hits, you reach these milestones that can escalate that contract.
All right, well, I think we've come to the end of the episode for this week. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for listening to us just ramble on. We will have another wrestling pod coming up. We got a lot of thoughts for that. What's your words of wisdom for the people, Sean?
Hey, this week, don't just wash your fruits and vegetables, but I want you to eat them too. Get healthy.
Oh, yeah, there's that. If your garbage dumpster is in a dark alley, please make sure you go with a buddy to take out your garbage.